Zackary native. Thank you for joining.
I'm Josh Day. I'll be the
Zackary
I'm Josh Day. I'll be the I'm Josh Day. I'll be the
Thank you.
And who's starting?
Do we have a timer? Oh, all these people, we have not one
I'll
timer,
try.
huh? That's that.
We need to be in a visible position.
Time when it is the time. Huh?
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, you do that? Okay, great. Yeah.
Okay. And before we get started, as he's getting set up, is there anything specific you'd like to share with us as judges, so we can make this round fun and better? Is that a word? Fun, yeah. Starting, I don't know what.
You guys obviously made it to final, so we know it's
I'd like to see creative arguments. Don't just go with the same old response that I know anybody can think of. If you can, I'd like to be impressed by a creative response or a different take on an argument that I haven't seen before or would have even thought of.
Yeah, I'd like to really see impacts and why, like, does your application or whatever point you're making, like, what does it have to do with the round? So, for instance, instead of getting caught in the debate about applications that goes on back and forth over one little fact, show me why it actually matters in the context of the round. And also make lots of jokes, because speaks don't matter, so I'll just give you fun speaks if you make fun.
I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah, what they said was really good. They're interesting, engaging. If it's the same old stuff, I kind of, my eyes must bleed. Yeah, I think I can do all that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement on the have fun and make this enjoyable. It's the last round of the term that everybody's kind of tired and wants to have an enjoyable round. I also want to see stuff link and show me why there's conflict, why there's clash. Especially in the rebuttal. So if that's clear to me, like if you show me how you win, you're lost on that to figure it out.
If you just don't go too fast, I can actually get it down.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I'm with the don't go too fast.
Okay, we will talk very, very soon.
Not too slow, it's like something.
Thank you.
You guys, am I going to be in a good spot right here for you, or?
That's good for me.
Remember looking at your. Okay.
So are the judges ready? And the time.
Yes.
Okay, before we begin, this speech will be sponsored by Coca-Cola. Delicious and refreshing. So we're all ready. A new father quickly learns that his child invariably comes to the bathroom, and specifically the times when he's in it, as if he needed company. The only way for his father to be certain of bathroom privacy is to shave at the gas station. Bill Cosby wasn't exactly a great political thinker or a philosopher, but he does make an interesting point, that privacy is undervalued. Let's define the terms. Privacy is the state of being free from unwarranted intrusion so as to maintain control over oneself. Note that this doesn't allow you to go and murder someone or harm their rights. Is the present tense. Examples must be correct. Now, undervalued, we find something a little different. Undervalued tells us that something is valued less than it should be. The problem is that we could go on for hours and never come to a solid conclusion on whether it's undervalued or overvalued. So in order to determine whether it's undervalued, we have to first determine the proper value of privacy. And so my value or measuring stick that's going to be used to accomplish this is that of protecting human dignity, simply defined as the intrinsic worth inherent in every human being based on the rights to life, liberty, and property. My stance or thesis in today's round is that the goal of privacy is to ensure the protection of human dignity and rights. Since privacy is supposed to protect human dignity, when our culture sets a value on privacy that harms human dignity, then that's when we know that privacy is undervalued. Let's look at 3 contentions to prove this thesis. The first contention is that human dignity is fundamental. Human dignity is the most important value. There's a couple reasons. The first reason is that human dignity gives people worth. Human dignity is essential for humans to be, well, human. As Thomas Jefferson eloquently states it, All men are created equal, endowed with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Essentially, human dignity is what separates man from animal. But beyond just the philosophical level, there actually is a practical reason. That is, human dignity is necessary to keep society running. Human dignity is necessary for society. Not only is human dignity morally sound, but it's also necessary to keep society running. For instance, in 1936, Spain underwent a brutal civil war in which basic human rights were tossed out the window, and as a result, thousands of lives were lost. This example doesn't necessarily show us the value of privacy. However, it does show us the necessary component of human dignity in society. Without human dignity, society falls apart. This leads me to contention 2, and that is, privacy's goal is human dignity. Now, historically, one of the challenges to privacy has been that the Constitution doesn't specifically enumerate on what privacy is. It doesn't enumerate on a right to privacy. However, in 1965, the Supreme Court ruled in Griswold v. Connecticut that privacy is not something in itself in the Constitution, but it's rather a zone derived from other constitutional rights to protect fundamental rights. A zone of privacy to protect human dignity and human rights. And not just in the United States. In New Zealand, lawmakers and professors alike have also advocated the same thing. N.A. Moreham, a senior fellow at Victoria University in New Zealand, states that privacy is integrally bound up with the dignity of the individual. And Edward Blaustein, the president of Rutgers University, tells us that every violation of privacy is a violation of human dignity as well. With this established, we see that the proper purpose of privacy, or the proper value of privacy, is when it protects human rights and human dignity. This leads me to my third and final contention, and that is privacy is undervalued. See, we know that human dignity is important, and we understand that privacy exists to protect human dignity. Now, here's the key. We know privacy is undervalued when society sets a value on privacy that is lower than the absolute protection of rights, that causes rights to be harmed. Unfortunately, that's exactly what's happening in the world today. Application 1, my first example. Calabretta versus Flynn. A few years ago, a social worker entered the home of the Calabretta family without a warrant based on an anonymous tip from a neighbor. The social worker was concerned supposedly about child abuse. However, after finding no signs of abuse, the social worker still insisted on performing a forcible strip search on the 3-year-old child. And the American Criminal Law Review actually says that in such situations, social workers actually have qualified immunity in violating the privacy of the home. Essentially, what we see here is that in America, the privacy of the home is detrimentally undervalued, and this causes human dignity to be harmed. My second application is outside of the United States. It's euthanasia. In the Netherlands, euthanasia, or the killing of sickly patients, is widely exercised and fully legal. Now, according to a recent study, over 72% of people who are euthanized have no say in their murder. What we see here is that the doctors clearly undervalue the privacy of their patients. And so what they do is they actually harm human dignity and destroy human lives. The impact of this is because of the undervaluing of privacy, we actually see that thousands of lives every year are destroyed. My third application is slavery. Currently in southern Sudan, up to 90,000 blacks are owned by North African Arabs and are often sold as property for as little as $15 per human being, end quote. And global slavery has been going on for all of history, from the southern plantations all the way back to the Egyptian pyramids. The entire reason that slavery exists is because cultures undervalue the privacy of the slave, and in doing so, they actually violate human dignity. And so what have we seen through this speech? Well, first, human dignity is of paramount importance. It gives us worth, and it prevents society from falling apart. Privacy's proper value is designed to protect this great ideal. Unfortunately, in our culture, we see that privacy is not being valued in a way that protects human dignity, and so privacy is undervalued. Thank you. I now stand over for cross-examination.
Right. All the judges are ready? The time? Well, first of all, I just have to say congratulations, Josh.
Massive congrats to you as well.
Thank you. And then I have to tell you that I am consequently a fan of human dignity being a human. But I do have some arguments against it. I have to question you though on that privacy. Do you consider privacy to be a right?
Privacy is not a right. No.
It's not a right. Okay. Is privacy inherently moral?
Is privacy inherently moral? It depends on how you define moral.
Okay. So privacy can be good and it can be bad depending on the situation.
It depends on how you define moral. I'm not saying that it's moral or immoral. I'm simply saying that you have to present a definition of moral.
Okay. Can privacy lead to a bad thing?
The way I defined it, no.
It can't. Okay. And why is that?
Because it allows for the person to have protection from unwanted intrusions as long as they maintain control over oneself.
I
Now,
see.
note that doesn't include, violating someone else's
Right.
rights.
So if I'm controlling myself as I secretly devise a plan to cut off your head.
Ouch.
Yeah. Is that within my privacy?
No, because you would be cutting off my head. You'd be destroying my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're drawing a very close connection between privacy and rights. Is that correct?
I am, and I believe that's established in Griswold v. Connecticut.
Right. Now then let me ask you this. Does our value have to be external to the resolution?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, your value simply has to be a good measuring stick for the resolution. And so if it provides a tangible measuring stick that the judge can see and can understand, then I believe it's good value.
Interesting. Okay. Well then let's just move on down to your examples of privacy being undervalued. I have to ask you this. Are you saying that privacy leads to human dignity?
Privacy does not lead to human dignity because human dignity is something that we as humans have inherently.
Correct. Are you saying privacy protects human dignity?
Yes.
And human dignity is undervalued?
Privacy is undervalued, and so human dignity is being harmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So privacy protects human dignity, and privacy is undervalued, so human dignity is being harmed.
Essentially.
And would you agree with me that all of your applications of privacy being undervalued are examples of rights being undervalued, right?
There are examples of rights being harmed, yes.
Rights being harmed. Okay. Thank you. So then I also have to ask you this. When can you have human dignity but not privacy?
When can you have human dignity?
Or can you?
and
Can you
privacy?
have human dignity but no privacy?
That's a good question. I'd have to think about that.
You're unsure. Okay.
Yeah, I am.
Can you have privacy and no human dignity?
That's also a good question. Honestly, I have to think about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well then, I'll be bringing that up in my next speech.
Okay.
You think about that, I'm gonna go get ready.
Starting maybe in the prep time.